excited to welcome onto the show Brooke Goldstein, who's the executive director of the Lawfare Project, founder and director of the Children's Rights Institute, and author of End Jew Hatred, a Manual for Mobilization. Brooke, thank you for being here today. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful.
So I wanted to give you an opportunity. I saw you on Fox News this past weekend, and I know that you've been talking about this issue that is incredibly important to you, but should be important to all of us. As we watch what's taking place in Israel, we have seen across our country and across the world just anti-Semitic types of protests that have come up. A lot of it is on college campuses. And I wanted to give you an opportunity to highlight some of these events and really give us a picture of what Jewish people across the globe right now are dealing with.
So actually what's happening is quite scary. I don't think it's an issue just for Jews. I think this is a national security threat to the United States of America. There was a recent bill that was proposed by Republicans that dealt with a hypothetical of whether or not, if there are Palestinian refugees, should we take them? And people have been asking questions about that. But I think the elephant in the room is we have Hamas here already within the United States. We have the Muslim Brotherhood here in the United States. They are actively operating on campuses through groups like Students for Justice in Palestine or Wool Palestine, who are either terror affiliated or outward supporters of Hamas terror. They are having protests with hundreds of people. Just recently at Columbia, the Jewish students were locked in a room by security for their own safety, apparently, while hundreds of people marched across Columbia University chanting pro-terror slogans and expressing support for the disgusting genocide that is happening, but also not just in Israel, but also calling to globalize the intifada, to bring it here. Now, if terrorists breached the Israeli border, how easy do you think it is for them to be coming through our southern border, which is basically open? And they have been coming. And we have Hezbollah sleeper cells in the United States. And Iran has been very open about this, actually. It's not a secret. But there was a coordinated campaign because people like me have been warning about this for 10 plus years. And there's been a coordinated campaign to try and silence us and defame us as though we're Islamophobic. We're talking about these issues of national security. What's happening on campus, the infiltration, the funding by Qatar, $10 billion a year. Sorry, $10 billion plus 10 years. That's $1 billion a year. The money in the millions going to Harvard, going to Carnegie Mellon, going to Northwestern University. They are allegedly setting up diversity, equity, inclusion departments, Middle Eastern studies departments, chairs, and they're fomenting a great deal, to say the least, of hostility against Jews on campus, but now they're also fomenting anti-Americanism and pro-terror support out in the open, pro-terror support within our borders. Muslim Brotherhood affiliated organizations like the Council on American Islamic Relations has been operative within our borders for many, many years. We have even at the highest levels of government, someone like Mr. Bitar, who is the advisor to President Biden, who also is some sort of head in a national security division. He was a former board member of Students for Justice in Palestine. Students in Justice for Palestine was set up by American Muslims for Palestine, which is a Muslim Brotherhood front organization. They've been called the pro-Hamas PR group on campus. They are terror affiliated. The same people who founded AMP are the ones who are funding designated terrorists abroad. This was shown in one of the biggest counterterrorism cases in America, the Holy Land Foundation case. Those same people went on to found and support AMP, which then supports SJP. Wool Palestine, also active on campus, connected to PFLP, a designated terrorist group, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. This is in our shores. This is happening here. There are 4,000 police officers deployed in France to protect the Jews there. That's at least one police officer per 48 Jews, and they still couldn't contain the violence. and they're threatening violence on the streets of America. This is a huge national security threat. The FBI director went on record saying that what they're concerned about are lone wolf attacks. This is the most highly coordinated cross-organizational campaign that we've seen as a fifth column in this country in our history.
Brooke,
and I'm deeply concerned.
Yeah, I know that you've followed this closely. You didn't just start following this last week, for certain, but a lot of Americans are maybe waking up to this that maybe haven't been as close to it as you have. And I am looking very close at the institutionalization of this on our college campuses. And there are so many other cultural movements that have started in higher education with the captive audience of these students in these classrooms and the radicalization of a lot of ideas that are very counterculture. And when I went to college in the early 2000s, we were on the tail end of like, it's a place to discuss broad ideas and to have open conversation, to ask questions. We're at a departure from that right now because people are told what to think, not how to think in universities anymore. When you were talking about our open border and the fact that you listed all of those different entities that are here on our soil already, including Hamas, how does that go hand in hand with the institutionalization of this groupthink that is being input into our university systems?
Well, if you look at the Muslim Brotherhood plan of how to infiltrate, subvert, and destroy the United States of America, a big chunk of it deals with deceptive, coordinated PR campaigns, as well as infiltrating our institutions of higher learning. And this is being done through money. Qatar is buying influence in the United States, not just on campuses, but at the highest levels of government. And we've seen actually since the 70s, the active working on our campuses as an element of battlefield in an Islamist jihad. And this is something that they write about openly. But anyone in the counterterrorism community 10 years ago who was warning about this, again, was shunned because they wanted to keep it quiet. But now we see it out in the open. Everybody's out in the open about their pro-Hamas support. Back, I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe a little more, at Fordham University, they were openly fundraising on campus for a Hamas flotilla illegally. You know, back in the 70s, Yasser Arafat himself flew to San Francisco State University. Yasser Arafat was an Egyptian. He wasn't born in any fictitious state called Palestine. He was an Egyptian. And he flew from Egypt to San Francisco State University and established GUPS, the General Union of Palestinian Students, which then morphed into SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine. We sued San Francisco State University. And, you know, one of the issues there, for example, was Professor Rabab Abdul Hadi, who was found to have flown to the Middle East and potentially engaged in aiding and abetting and unlawful material support for PFLP. So this is a strategy that we're all now waking up to. We're seeing the effects of it, and the unfortunate victims are American college students who are being radicalized. It's a very intense strategy, and we need to deal with it right now.
Yeah, in many cases in history, we can look back to a moment in time that looked a little bit like it does right now with the institutionalization of this anti-Semitic behavior. And we are not going to get a redo on the first time, but we have the opportunity to step in now. We're speaking with Brooke Goldstein. Her book, End Jew Hatred, A Manual for Mobilization, is out, as I understand, in April of 2024, but you can pre-order that book right now. Before I let you go, this is something I'm sure that you're used to here. We have people watching on our live YouTube broadcast. And one of the comments, I'm just going to read to you one of the comments from here because I want you to have the opportunity to respond. Paul says, a lot of assertions. What kind of proof do you have that these things are going on? For those who don't believe that this is actually taking place on American soil, Brooke, what do you say to those individuals?
Well, they should go visit these schools. They should see what's happening for themselves. They're very out in the open. You have someone like Joseph Massad, who is a professor at Columbia University, who just published an article in a extremist outlet called the Electronic Intifada. Intifada means violent religious uprising. It's the justification for killing innocent civilians. He just published an article justifying the Hamas Holocaust, the genocide. And I want to say something. It's very important. After the Holocaust, we had a phenomenon of Holocaust denial.
Yeah.
And often the denial came from those who wished to see the Holocaust repeat, from the neo-Nazis. Even the Nazis were, what push comes to shove, at the end tried to hide what they had done. Okay, even though they did it openly for 6+ years. Not even before the dead are buried are we having the Hamas Holocaust denial. And these people are coming, show me proof a woman was raped.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? Show you the GoPro? Show you the GoPro while he raped her? We see their naked bodies with their legs open, their hands bound behind their back, and their mouths tied, burnt alive. What do you need, the footage before that?
Yeah.
It's disgusting that Jews have to constantly be on the defense for being on the defense. If the world doesn't understand what happened, they can go see for themselves. We paraded journalists throughout who were almost throwing up because of the stench of rotting bodies. Go do the research, do the fact analysis yourself, and you'll see. Wake up.
Brooke, we appreciate your time today and bringing a very strong spotlight to the issues that are being faced there in Israel, but across the globe, especially here in the United States. And we will continue to shine that light. Brooke Goldstein, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye. Brooke Goldstein, Executive Director of the Lawfare Project, founder and director of the Children's Rights Institute, author of End Jew Hatred, a Manual for Mobilization. You can get that book on Amazon as a pre-order right now. It's out April 2024.